Hi everyone. I'm Karan and I'm currently a product manager at Wolt, which is DoorDash in Germany. And in today's video, we will be discussing another product design interview question, which is designing a LinkedIn for blue collar workers. And if you have been seeing my videos, my content, feel free to like and subscribe if you're liking the content that I'm creating. Gives me motivation. Okay, so let's begin with today's question, which is designing a LinkedIn for blue collar workers. So before even beginning with the question, let's uh, align on the high level approach. For the high level approach, what we can do is we can focus on understanding the basics of the question first. What are blue collar workers and what does exactly LinkedIn do? So some clarifying questions. Then we can focus on why does LinkedIn want to move into the space of blue collared workers? What does it exactly want to achieve? So somewhere around the goal. Let's then discuss who within the blue collar workers do we want to focus on in our initial part of the journey. Let's look at their pain points, try to understand what pain points do we want to solve, and then eventually look at solutions, any matrix, and finally risks of the solution. So this is the high level approach that we will be taking for this particular question. Okay, so let's begin with some clarifying questions. In terms of clarifying questions, let's first understand what do we mean by blue collared workers. At least in my understanding, blue collared workers are those that have a specialized skill. They're not necessarily very well educated, but they have specialized skills. It could be, let's say, construction, cleaning, delivering from one place to the other, electrician, home repair, driver, any manufacturing related things, plumbing, and so on. So these are all of the occupations that I consider under blue collar workers. I'll just list a few here. So let's say plumbing, it could be, let's say, carpentry, or it could be, let's say, house cleaning, any home repairs stuff, salon, etc. So this is what uh, I perceive as blue collared workers. And currently, LinkedIn does not focus on this user segment, and that is why probably LinkedIn is trying to expand its user base and target blue collared workers. Okay. LinkedIn, what does it do? So LinkedIn is basically just a uh, job hunt marketplace wherein essentially companies post their jobs, and then um, the ones who are interested in looking for jobs also go there, and it's essentially connecting them together. There are also expandable use cases, such as if I'm a freelancer, I go on LinkedIn and post about my business. It has become now more of a professional social media platform, but in the beginning, it definitely started as a place where we want to connect the job seekers to the employers. So that's essentially what LinkedIn does. In terms of geography, let's probably look at India as the target geography. There are definitely quite a lot of blue collared workers in India. It is an unorganized space, and we can definitely look at standardizing it. Okay. And when we say that we want to design a LinkedIn for blue collared workers, I assume that we want to continue to create a platform where we want to connect the blue collared workers to the employers. And that is essentially it, because there could be different user segments which we can speak of in blue collared workers. They could be working hourly, they could be working on a daily basis on contracts and so on. We probably could align on the fact that we're not necessarily looking for just a simple marketplace model, but rather we are looking at potentially connecting them to employers. So these are okay, just underlying assumptions and clarifications on this particular question. In terms of constraints, I will go ahead and assume that there are no possible constraints in this question. And then moving to the goal, um, obviously, at least in my understanding, one of the goals could be new user acquisition. So basically, the corporate employees of LinkedIn must be limited. There must be a limited set of users who can definitely come on LinkedIn and use it as a very relevant professional portal. Regardless of that particular regardless of that particular space, we can definitely imagine that there is another space of blue collared workers who would like to have like a very relevant platform. And thus, LinkedIn is actually trying to acquire them, and eventually the goal will be to engage them and monetize them. So for now, from acquisition, engagement, and monetization of these new users, my focus will be to ensure that we are bringing in new user acquisition from a LinkedIn perspective. Is it aligned with LinkedIn's mission? Definitely, because LinkedIn has this mission of connecting, creating like a social platform for professionals. And professionals does not necessarily include white collar workers, but also blue collar workers. So it definitely aligns with the mission. And maybe I can also write this down. So it's aligned with the mission. In terms of competitors, at least in the Indian geography, there is a competitor called as Apna. Um, they also do something similar where they provide like a platform for employers to post the blue collar jobs, and then the blue collared workers can potentially find jobs on the portal. So maybe there are some synergies that we can look for while thinking about this question. But so far, I think LinkedIn has a very strong value proposition of a stronger brand, bigger base. So I think those details, those nuances will definitely be handy. The only thing that we can probably pick from Apna as a competitor would be localization. We need to ensure that there is localization of the product when it comes to designing this app for blue collared workers. Okay, so competitors. We have Apna, and what we can learn from them is something like localization. Okay, so now let's look at the users. In terms of users, who could potentially be our blue collared workers? Now, there could be two types of blue collared workers. One is, you know, the ones that are doing jobs, and the one that are sort of contracted or hired um, on a daily, hourly basis. So these are more likely like freelancers. Now, it depends on what we want to achieve here, but I think we can probably begin. We can probably begin with designing an app for LinkedIn, catering to blue collared workers, particularly for those that are doing jobs, because it's not it's not going to be necessary that all of the people that are either contracted or hired um, have like the all of the people might not have the right amount of contacts to actually get contracted or hired on a daily basis. This is also something which is probably not very stable. Doing jobs with a potential employer brings in stability, and particularly for blue collared workers, given that salary stability can be a very important thing. Bringing financial stability to the family can be a very important thing. I think we should definitely focus on this particular user segment. They also might not have the relevant contacts to get hired from a daily or a hourly basis. So I think the target addressable market for the first user segment is definitely going to be bigger. They are the ones that are potentially going to grow because, like I said, it's more of a lucrative option to probably begin with a stable job in the starting run, and then maybe they could pivot to like a contractual or a hiring basis model. And the reach for the addressable market is also something that is a very good factor, because LinkedIn, if it creates a portal that targets this folks, blue collared folks who are interested in doing jobs, then I think LinkedIn is probably the right platform for these people to hunt for jobs and potentially connect them to employers. So from that particular segment, I think doing jobs is the right one, the right user segment to pick for this particular discussion. Okay, pain points. Um, so what usually happens in the user journey of a person, of a blue collar person who is interested in doing a job? So the first step would be, um, you know, knowing their skill. That would be the step one. If required, they will be interested in upskilling. Then finding a job that probably requires maybe or may not be like a resume, because I haven't seen a lot of importance given to a resume, particularly in the blue collar job market. But let's see. There could be certain situations where a resume is important versus many situations where it's not. It's definitely going to be contacts or referrals driven, because it's a small market, it's heavily localized. We need to make sure that the contacts are in place. And if you have the right contacts or referrals, there is a very, very strong likelihood that you can be hired. There's not a very strong need of, just doing like 7 rounds of interviews, unlike white collar jobs. It's more on the lines of, okay, do I know this person? Do I know the person's work? And that's pretty much it. And that's how I would assume that blue collar workers can potentially get a job. So there's not a lot of screening upfront. So that's one. Finding a job involves resume, contacts or referrals. Probably also, um, you know, ensuring that you have like a phone number. It could also be like a hiring drive. And then you just go through the process, some discussions, not necessarily like literally interviews, but just, some discussions, verifications of documents and things like that. And finally, salary. Uh, so yeah, I think this is what at least, the process would look like for a person who is interested in doing a job as a blue collared worker. Now, looking at this particular user journey, let's start identifying the pain points from their perspective. I think I missed something here. So doing jobs. So these are the ones that are doing jobs, contractors, and then obviously there would be employers as well, who are looking to hire. And then there would be, so let's probably do it in this way. So the ones who want to do jobs and the ones who want to hire them. And then there are the ones who want to get contracted or hired on a daily or hourly basis, and the ones that are going to hire on a daily or hourly basis. Okay. So something like job section and then freelance world section. And obviously for the purpose of acquisition, we are not focusing on the employer side of the world, but rather we are focusing on the ones who want the jobs. Okay, looking at the user journey, let's try to now identify the pain points. Now, obviously, the first one would be I want to get upskilled, or let's say I don't have the necessary or I don't have the required skills. So this is one problem. The second problem is it's tough for me to find a job. And then maybe salary is another thing. So I feel I am underpaid. Now, based on the parameters of prioritization for pain points, let's look at severity as one of the parameters. If whether the problem is severe enough, then let's look at whether the problem is prevalent enough. Is it applicable for a 1% population or is it applicable for majority? Then does it align with the goal of if we solve that pain point, will it help us in acquisition, user acquisition? And can we solve that pain point? Can LinkedIn solve that particular pain point? Okay. So if I were to design a very new app for LinkedIn, I would definitely focus on first this particular pain point of being the platform to find jobs, not necessarily my first step would not be being the platform to build the skills or being the platform to provide salary leveling or enough information on salary. So from that perspective, I think this particular problem of finding a relevant job is severe. It is definitely prevalent, and it aligns with the goal of user acquisition because most of the people out in the market are looking for jobs. And that's where LinkedIn has to come into the picture. It definitely aligns with the goal and mission of the company, and LinkedIn can definitely solve for it. Obviously, the later steps would be, upskilling and salary transparencies and things like that. But let's start with this particular problem as the biggest one to focus. Okay. So for this particular pain point of not of finding a job, let's think of solutions. Um, Even before beginning with the exact solutions or the alternatives, something that I have thought of is just like a marketplace model versus an end-to-end agency model. Now, let me actually define what a marketplace model could be. A marketplace model is something like something that is probably more suitable for freelance space where the ones that are willing to hire someone for a job. So let's say that there is some water problem in my bathroom, and I want and I want to hire a particular person for how many hours? Let's assume 24 to 48 hours. And in that 24 to 48 hours, I'll pay a certain amount, and I want to hire a plumber who can actually help with the fixing it. So in this particular use case, LinkedIn becomes like a marketplace model where I would post a posting for this particular job to be done. The number of hours can be discussed, but the amount that I'm willing to pay, and the potential plumbers out on LinkedIn can just apply, saying that I can do it. This is what I have done in the past, and that's pretty much it. I hire them, and the work is done in 24 to 48 hours. So that is essentially the marketplace model. It's purely, LinkedIn just being the connector between the two stakeholders. Whereas the end-to-end agency model is interesting because there are many end-to-end recruiting agencies out there. And probably LinkedIn can do a better job in actually standardizing things and becoming the bigger moat here, like the bigger fish in the pond here, by obviously acquiring many users, but at the same time also providing that offline end-to-end agency model support, wherein we not only help you with finding a job in terms of resume, contacts, etc., but can also help you with hiring, drive, process, and you are done with things. And the interesting part here is that we can probably even get a better commission out of the process. What this will do is this can actually standardize things. This can bring in uniformity in the blue collar job hiring process, wherein we would know that for a plumber, this is how people should get hired. For let's say a carpentry job, this is how people should get hired, and so on and so forth. So I think that is an interesting way to look at it. So these are just the business model proposals that we could potentially think of. The marketplace model is also something that probably urban company has been doing, where if I as a customer, I'm looking for, let's say, a home salon, or fixing my bathroom pipes, as we discussed before, I can put in that request, and then eventually I'll get someone for X number of hours who can help me with this particular thing. But does LinkedIn want to be that marketplace, like the freelance marketplace? Potentially, but I think there is a very good opportunity to actually monetize by providing like an end-to-end agency model support from LinkedIn. So yeah, so these are not essentially product solutions, but these are business models, and this is probably what I would propose doing in the first run. Okay, so now let's look at the solutions. Now, since it is tough for me to find a job, what I would like to do, Okay, so in terms of solutions, it could be like a two-layered solution where either I as a user can probably join like a regular scheme where I have functionalities such as, localized search for jobs. Um, then there are posts from similar people. It is also easy to reach out with phone number because internet in this space, like particularly for blue collared workers, might not be the biggest thing to be looking at. So internet might potentially be a bottleneck. So I would look at profiles where phone number is like mandatory and visible to everyone, obviously when requested. So that's one. Um, Multiple language support because it's not necessary that everyone would know English. And I think supporting local languages is definitely going to be critical. Um, there can potentially be support for, just basics, profile information basics, and posting um, your skills and work from past, the work that you have done from the past. I think this is probably going to be very, very critical. If there is a possibility of people that can actually post reviews or testimonials, it's a good thing, but probably can be a stretch in the beginning run. So let's probably exclude that for now. But I think this is probably going to be extremely important because this is probably the basis, if not resume, profile information basics and posting your skills and work from the past is going to be critical for an employer to potentially hire someone. Okay. Um, I do not necessarily want to apply for a job directly because it's not going to help me. It's better that I just reach out to relevant people for referrals and things like that. So each for referral contacts and things like that. Okay, so that could be our basic first step. The another step, as we were discussing, could be more on the lines of joining like an agency scheme, which is there would be information about hiring drive. You can join join or attend the hiring drives with, let's say, like a resume or a bio data. And because it is an agency scheme and the hiring drive is hosted by LinkedIn, being a user on LinkedIn will definitely help because we have your profile information basics. We know about your skills and work from the past. So we can be the middle player between you and the employer and conduct all of the process related to hiring. So it could be, let's say, shortlisting on the portal itself, and also giving you information about, let's say, two discussions at max, not necessarily more than that. And also transparency on salary information so that we are bringing in that equitable nuance. So salaries are usually low and people can feel that you are underpaid. So I think public transparency on salary information is something that we can add here as a potential uh, feature for this product. And then yeah, and I think that's pretty much it for the overall solution. And I think there should not necessarily be alternatives here. So I have just come up with a phase by phase solution where we can begin with this particular phased solution and then move to the agency scheme solution, which is probably um, more heavy in terms of effort. So let's probably say that this is more like an MVP and this is more like a phase one. This definitely has higher effort and this has lower effort. It's probably also similar with all of the technologies that LinkedIn has, and we can probably leverage this particular product to build a user base for blue collar workers. Okay. Yeah, I think I have definitely emphasized on localization here. Localization is definitely going to be important because I, as an individual, is probably not interested in, let's say, like a carpentry job, which is probably 1,000 miles away from me. I'm more or less interested in moving, migrating, not to a very great extent, but probably uh, in a very concise radius. So I think localization is definitely going to be key, and this is where I think localization, finding contacts with phone numbers are probably the way to go for me as a blue collared worker to find a potential job out there. If I am obviously not feeling that comfortable in terms of finding those jobs, because again, the supply and demand ratio is not right, then I think LinkedIn can potentially have these centers, like, a few shops or outlets here and there, like physical outlets, where they can connect an employer to potentially 500 people, create a hiring drive, bring 500 people in a particular place, do the shortlisting right there, one to two discussions at max, and finally hire 10 people as required. And that's basically and eventually gain from that particular process a particular commission fee. And that is how I think LinkedIn can structure it from an end-to-end agency model perspective. Okay, let's look at the success matrix. Now, we have been talking about user acquisition. So I think the number of blue collared workers on a LinkedIn platform uh, is probably my North Star metric. And the other supporting uh, or tracking matrix that I will look at is number of blue collared jobs posted, and then obviously engaged with. So maybe messages, post likes, comments, um, a request to view phone number, so on. And then eventually, the other supporting or tracking metric that I will potentially look at is number of blue collar jobs or number of blue collar people placed with jobs. I think that's also essentially going to be very, very critical. LinkedIn has this feature where it says LinkedIn helped me get a job. So I think we can definitely leverage something similar here to understand, okay, where is actually LinkedIn helping the blue collar people get an actual job. Guardrails. I think guardrails. So post acquisition engagement is uh, post acquisition low engagement is probably something that I will look at. And then if, let's say, there is post job low engagement. Now, I know that these are not necessarily our goals. Engagement are not necessarily our goals. Acquisition is. But I think as we think of acquisition and then proceed to the further stages of engagement and monetization, this can definitely become sort of important. Um, it also depends upon how LinkedIn's business model would transform. In the beginning, if we focus on, let's say, the agency scheme, then I think it's totally fine with monetizing from this particular aspect. And then the engagement is not very, very critical. If we want to keep on pushing for ads model in the blue collar segment, then obviously engagement is definitely something to be looking at in the future. Okay, risks. Um, let's think. One of the risks is, maybe it just does not connect the blue collar people. So the positioning is definitely going to be important, like the go-to-market strategy, because it's an app, it's a job searching app with certain functionalities. Obviously, knowledge of the internet is going to be critical. Um, so I think internet could be a potential barrier. Positioning could be something that we need to be very, very cautious about. So I think if the positioning is not relevant or is not connecting to the blue collar people, then I think LinkedIn might fall into a risk of not gaining enough traction or adoption for this particular app for blue collared workers. Okay, so positioning is definitely one. What other risks can we see here? Maybe it is just good enough for acquiring users and then engaging users, but another risk could be, is it is it good enough for employers also to post jobs um, post jobs on LinkedIn to get blue collared workers? So another risk or another question that I would ask is, do employers, blue collared employers, really need LinkedIn for this? Because if there is not a very great need, or if there is not a lot of desperation coming from these employers, then I think there is a good enough possibility that, okay, maybe they just do not want it. They do not want the end-to-end agency model, or they even do not want to post jobs on LinkedIn, and that's enough. There is probably like a higher supply, and maybe they just do not require very highly skilled blue collared workers. Um, so I think these could be nuances where uh, the positioning and all of these things could matter, and I see it as a risk. Okay, so these two risks are the ones worth calling out. And this brings us to the end of the question. We were supposed to design a LinkedIn for blue collared workers. We started with a few clarifying questions, aligned on acquisition as our goal, uh, eventually focused on users who are doing jobs as the potential target segment, not the employer side or not even the freelancing side. Looked at the broad user journey of how things could look. From there, narrowed down to what the pain points could be, and eventually looked at finding a job is actually difficult for me as a blue collared worker. And this is what LinkedIn needs to focus on. We also just took a slight tangent to look at what potential business models could be fruitful here. Also thought of something like an end-to-end agency model where LinkedIn can come into the picture and literally help blue collar workers get a job. Uh, and from a solution perspective, this is the conventional LinkedIn plus the localization aspect, the language support aspect, where we are putting a lot of emphasis on contacts, phone numbers for someone to hunt a job. But at the same time, the agency scheme could be pretty interesting, where they could post hiring drives and attend them. There could be potential shortlisting, and then eventually can get hired. Success matrix, eventually we are looking at the number of blue collar workers acquired on the LinkedIn platform, and also the jobs posted and how many are eventually getting placed with jobs. Looked at some of the risks, need to make sure that the positioning and connect with the blue collar people is actually on the point. Otherwise, it could be just another product which is not necessarily solving the problem. Okay. And I think this is pretty much it for this product design question. Uh, Thank you so much. Great conversation. Let me know how you liked this particular response to the question. And in case you liked it, drop a like and also subscribe to the channel, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you.